Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Pathways to Aviation. I'm Pete Parker, the Executive Director of this 501c3 nonprofit organization, and our mission is simple. It's to guide high school, college students, and job seekers to aviation and aerospace careers. We're based in Reno, Nevada, but we're helping students and job seekers from really all across the world, the whole planet, as they're coming to us from high schools and colleges all over the country. And then we're working with job seekers in other countries that are looking for greater ways, greater access to employment in a worldwide venue. So we may be small and in Reno, but we're affecting a lot. We're affecting thousands of future aviation just superstars. We provide resources to them in a number of ways, and we'll touch on a couple throughout today's workshop. But one of them is through our website. They go onto our website. There's a lot of information on our website. But if they register as a new user, they are provided with access to all of our career resources, and we can guide them through a three-step process, a three-step career education process that focuses on readiness, where they'll learn about how to identify their soft and hard skills, how to prepare those in a written format, which is your resume writing and LinkedIn profiles and that sort of thing. How to verbalize those through 30-second elevators, job interviews, and certainly networking plays a part of that. We'll get to that in a little bit. And then we deem them as career ready. When we deem them as career ready, then we will promote their desired outcomes to whomever they wish. So there are three desired outcomes that we really push for. The first are scholarships. They're looking to advance their flight training program or to get their A&P or whatever it might be within the industry. We want to help provide resources so they can do that where it's not a burden on them financially. The other is, excuse me, I lost my train of thought. A lot of them will go to a trade school or a two-year college or a four-year university, and they'll struggle with the admissions process. And so we'll help identify schools that are within their interest, their location, and their future vocation. And so we'll introduce them to admissions leaders or even the chancellors or the presidents of those institutions. We can do that. We have that access. And the third is to land that job, whether it's entry level or mid-level. We focus more on the entry and mid-level more than the CEO type because they've already established their careers. We're working with those who are looking to enter the profession or take that first leap, that first career advancement. Beyond that, that's not really our scope, but we're happy to help in any way we can. So those are the three primary outcomes that we're seeking. We also do it through workshops. We offer workshops in an online format and those in person. A lot of our in-persons are done with sponsors, corporate partners who will come in and want to sponsor one of our events or programs, and then we'll connect them with the opportunity to host a workshop at their sites or at the location of their choice. And then we have online workshops. We do these once a month on a Wednesday where we'll just open it up and invite an industry leader into our room, get to know the industry leader, and then just have a conversation about a specific career readiness topic. So like today's career readiness topic is networking, but not just networking in the general sense, but like the finer points of the networking moment when you're actually there at the reception. And so that's how we do it. And then we do a lot of like one-on-one coaching. We have mentors within our ranks who like to provide that assistance, that guidance. We can create small group Zoom calls. A lot of our workshops are visited by schools or groups of students who are watching from one location. And so we welcome those. Those are always fun. And then all of our workshops are posted onto our website within, well, hopefully 48 hours. And then they're shared with the schools so that they can watch almost in real time the conversation that took place in that workshop. And so with all those things put together, we're able to connect with students and job seekers in a way that's almost immediate, but poignant to the industry, poignant to the time, poignant to potential job opportunities, and that sort of thing. And so we're here today. We just have a few guests today, but we don't know who's going to see this after this session is over, and that's the exciting part because you never know who's going to see this. I'm going to introduce two people just real quickly. First, I'm going to introduce, and I'll let you speak real quick, Joe. You can show your 30-second elevator. But we just found out that he's an award-winning retired captain for United Airlines, and that's Joe Rajasic. Joe, why don't you say a couple words, and then we'll pass over to Greg.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Rajasic, retired United Airlines 747 captain, and now I teach people and try to get people interested in careers in aviation, and Pathways is one of the major ways that we do that. And it's fun for me, and it's fulfilling, and it's a way to give back after my 50-year career in aviation. Now I want to help other people, and so they can see the joys, the fun of flying if they're flying, or being a mechanic if they're a mechanic, or any area of aviation. It's a great community, and I'm very happy to be part of it and part of Pathways. Thanks, Pete.
That was amazing. Joe, real quick, what award did you receive?
Say again?
What award did you receive?
Oh, it's called the Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award. So there's a couple of thousand people that have got this award already. 3 people so far this year have received it. So quite an honor.
That's pretty impressive. I'm going to want more information on that after this call.
Okay.
Okay, we have a keynote speaker for today. He's a super good friend and has been on the Pathways board for some time, but he's just kind of a fun person. What we do in these workshops is we do not have a full introduction of our guests. They're forced to come on and share their 30-second elevator, and then they can go in and talk about their career journey and all their greatness. So this is where I turn it over to Greg Meisinger, who's going to inspire us with his greatness. Joe, it's all you.
Or it's all you, Greg.
Okay. Well, let me just start by saying, Pete, thanks for having me along on the journey here with Pathways. So my name's Greg Meisinger, former active duty F-18 pilot turned part-timer reservist, F-5 and F-16 pilot for the Navy. And I currently fly for American Airlines. I was on the Airbus, and then I most recently did not get an award, but I got another type rating on the 777. So just finished up my training about a week or two ago. So that's exciting stuff. I got involved with Pathways a few years ago, but I'd say really my big elevator pitch for Pathways itself is, as I was growing up, I unfortunately relied on the better to be lucky than good, and I didn't really know how to get involved in aviation, even though I know I loved it. My parents didn't have a lot of direction on that either, and luckily, I happened across the people and the places I needed to meet and get through to kind of go forth on my dream and get to do all the things that I wanted to do. So when I saw Pathways, I saw something that was providing what I didn't have, which is a little bit of direction, a place to find information, a place to ask questions. And that really, drew me in and had me want to be a part of it. Just because it is such a wealth of information and a great networking tool. Something I didn't have as I was growing up. So a little bit about me, right there. Kind of moving back, I guess, towards the beginning. I grew up just north of Philadelphia, Doylestown, Pennsylvania, Bucks County area, if anyone knows that area. Went to school up in Vermont, but always knew that I wanted to be an airline pilot, but I wanted to get there via the Navy. At the time, I didn't know it was the Navy. I just knew I wanted to fly airplanes off the aircraft carrier. Someone was like, "Hey, that's the Navy," and I was like, "I guess I'm joining the Navy." So I made my way out there. Right after college, the day after I graduated, I was in Pensacola, Florida, and starting flight training, which was awesome. I had never touched an airplane prior to that. So what was I, 21, 22 years old, the first time I ever touched an airplane. And just a few years later, they had me flying F-18s off the front end of the carrier. So the training aspect was incredible. Ended up deploying in support of a lot of operations out in the Middle East. And doing a lot of carrier operations. And then from there, I ended my time in Fallon, Nevada, which is the home of Top Gun and all the other weapons schools that exist for the Navy, whether that be helicopters or E-2 platforms. I loved it out there. You're kind of the tip of the spear in terms of meeting all the people that are kind of plugged in to the tactics development, the tactics implementation, writing the contracts for requirements and in terms of new projects, new weapons, new missiles, all that stuff. So really got to brush shoulders and be a part of what the current happenings were, if you will. And that kind of informed me into a lot of different areas other than just piloting, which was cool. And then from there, I'm still a part-timer out there, reservist, fly about 8 to 10 days a month, flying F-5s and F-16s, and transitioned over to, we'll call it my second career, flying initially the Airbus and now the 777 for American Airlines. I'd say one really interesting thing that I've learned along the way, in terms of aviation, and Joe kind of alluded to it, is it's such a cool industry. And I think because it's not just piloting and it's not just software engineering and it's not just network development, the skills that I've learned in aviation have been so transferable to everywhere else that I've even peeked behind the door on. And I'm realizing how cool aviation is because those skills really set you up for so many different things, regardless of what your interests are or what you truly want to get involved in. So I really enjoy that aspect of it. I did a lot of instruction throughout my time in different platforms. And one thing I found was I got really interested in how people learn and how people absorb information. And that's not actually me flying an airplane. That's me on the ground kind of working with how do people communicate? How do people talk? What's the most effective way to teach somebody? And that's agnostic of whether it's in aviation or not. So, things I've noticed going along of what aviation has provided to me. Um, the the I'd say the major things as I kind of talk to bigger groups of people sometimes, and people ask, what can I do now? And it's kind of hard, Well, what stage are you in? Are you looking to go to college, or are you already in college? Do you have an internship? Are you looking for a job? There's a lot of codified hard skills, as we like to call them, or things you need to know that, hey, I need to get my resume done, or I need to get that proofread and all that stuff. And that's all well and good. But as I kind of reflected back on my time, I realized the thing that has served me the best, I think, regardless of where I was in the journey, is asking questions. And this is going to kind of lead into networking that Pete's going to talk about. But asking questions all along the way kind of does a few things for you. Let's say you want to get involved in aviation like I did, and you had no idea where to start. And you're a younger person, so you start asking your parents. Well, your parents might not know. And so they're going to get annoyed and they're going to go find someone who's like, hey, you got to answer these questions because I don't know what they are. The answers are. So all of a sudden you start talking to someone who does know the answer, and they direct you a different direction and let you talk to somebody else who's maybe more specific in a role that you want. And next thing you know, you're starting to gather all this information. And again, this is going to apply regardless of where in the journey you are. But while you're doing that along the way, you're meeting more and more people that are involved in the areas that you want to be involved in. So I think just reminding yourself to ask the questions and put yourself out there, regardless of where you're at in the journey, is really going to give you huge benefits in both gathering information as well as growing your network. And that's going to serve dividends going forward. And then the other thing I remind everybody is that aviation is it's a small world, right? Everything's a small world, but aviation, even though it seems gargantuan, is a small place. And I have been blown away by the number of times that I've come across a familiar face from 10 years ago, from 18, 19, almost 20 years ago now when I first started flying. And it's those relationships that have actually served me really well recently as I try to apply to new companies and new roles, or even within the Navy, applying for new roles or leadership positions within the military. Having that solid reputation and that solid network along the way is really what's paid off. So, those are kind of the big picture things that I've seen come out of my time in the Navy. And if I hadn't mentioned it, that was even me in flight school when I was just a junior little guy who had no idea what he didn't know. Or as I was going through Top Gun and I was learning, the higher level intricacies of tactics development and things like that, those same skills have served me just as well throughout that whole journey. So, Pete, a slightly longer than a 30-second intro there, but I'm happy to expand on anything or continue to talk about some networking and whatever you feel is best.
Great, that was awesome. I always love hearing your story because I feel like every time I talk to you, there's a new story, and I already feel like I know you super well. So it's kind of fun hearing what's exciting for you. Rather than just ask you questions, I think what I want to dive into real quick, and Joe, you can jump in. We scheduled this workshop on the eve of our biggest event of the year, and it's an in-person event. And I know that those who are viewing or on with us right now may not be able to attend because they live in other cities, other states. But we're hosting a big event tomorrow night. Do you want to share a little bit about what we're doing tomorrow night?
Sure, I'll jump in and then I'll let Joe jump in. So kind of a keynote event that we're having tomorrow night, Women in Space, hosted over at the Joe Crowley room in at UNR, is going to feature Eileen Collins, who commander, astronaut, first female commander in space, correct? And is logged, I don't know the exact number, but almost a couple hundred hours up in space. Looking through her bio, again, she's got such an incredible background in terms of skills, the projects she's worked on, things like that. So yeah, we've got this event where, you know, we're taking someone who has worked on the national and international stage in terms of colleagues and peers, and getting to really talk to her about what her story is, as well as what she's found has served her very well throughout her time. And what I think is cool about that is, you know, being the first at anything is going to come with a lot of challenges. So kind of hearing how she perceived that experience moving through. And then I think what's really cool that we don't get to see a lot is somebody who's worked not just with different groups of people, but like internationally on such a huge stage where governments and politics play a huge role as well. So that's kind of the big picture for tomorrow night. Lots of sponsors and vendors and people that are going to be there. Lots of people interested in aviation, so a great networking opportunity as well. So, Joe?
Joe, I stuck you on mute because we had some background noise.
I think what this will show tomorrow night is, especially for the girls or young ladies attending, is that there's no more challenges like there used to be. Aviation used to be a man's club, almost all male, and even today that we have diversity, I think the number is only 6 or 7% of the airline pilots are female, and I hope that the young people who attend this will see that there's no restrictions, there's challenges, but anybody could do it. It doesn't matter what your background is, where you came from. If you work hard, you could have your dream. And I'm sure she's worked very hard, and I can't wait to hear her story. And again, there's a multitude of people at this event, different companies representing different aspects of aviation. So even if you're not that interested in becoming an astronaut or even a pilot, there's going to be people there from SNC, from Aberis. If you want to learn how to be a composite specialist, you want to be a designer of airplanes, that's the place to go. And that's what Pathways tries to do every year, is put together a special program where somebody is outstanding in their field, like we did last year with the Top Gun event. This year is Women in Space. But I think the supporting groups is really what people come there to find out about, and what they can do, what they need to prepare to get to that career. Some of the people may be in high school and they're looking at colleges or different kinds of schools, technical schools. And we hope that everybody has a good time and comes away learning something.
Ooh, that's awesome. Thank you both. Joe, it's a perfect segue into what I'm going to share. And I'm just going to take a few minutes to talk about this because um, we're dedicating an hour and a half tomorrow night to what we're calling career readiness. Other events will call it the cocktail hour or the social hour or the networking experience. And networking in most people's lives is super terrifying or intimidating. And they shy away from it, where I believe it's a science. It's a method of making new friends. And we want the experience to be great because, as you both mentioned, and I look at it from a pebble, right? So every person you meet has gold in them. And in my life, I've taken upon myself as my purpose in life is to find that gold and help them make it shine so they can go off and do amazing things. And so, same with networking. You never know what the person can offer, can connect you with, or can share with you insight, or what you can provide that person when you meet them. And so, I want to take a few minutes to kind of talk about that networking experience. And I believe there are three kind of venues for networking, or pick a word to replace networking as it best describes you. But the first is in social settings, like at weddings, funerals, even, or I'm right now in a Starbucks, standing in line in a Starbucks, or sitting next to somebody. The other is that job interview. Believe it or not, the job interview is a brilliant networking opportunity because there are some interviews where you're with a panel of like 7 people and they're firing questions at you, but really you're getting to get to know them in that 1 hour moment. And then there are these structured moments like the networking reception or special events, air shows, career fairs, or if you're in school, high school or college, a lot of times they have job fairs, but they also bring employers on campus for a couple hours. Those are opportunities. And so I want to put my focus right now on that special event, whether it's a structured networking experience or it's just you attend a reception for to watch Joe get his big Right award. And so what I have done and what we share with through Pathways is are a variety of elements. There are 8 total, but I'm only going to focus on 5 real quick. And the first is like when you walk into that room, whatever venue it is, what are you going to do? What are some things you should do? So the first thing I do is when I walk into that room, I scope it. I look for things on the wall. I look for people. I look all around the room. I sense the smell. I sense the vibe. Because a lot of times you'll go to a network experience and you'll be like, and even I do this sometimes, and I'll be like, oof, not for me. It's just not my vibe right now. Because we all have a different frame of mind when we walk into somewhere. You might be in a bad mood, good mood, excitable mood, whatever it might be. You're like, okay, and so you have to make that decision. Right when I do that and I decide to stay, I look for what I call my escape routes. Like if it's not working my way, where can I go? Right. And so you just look around the room. You might look for the bathrooms. You might look for the display tables. You might look for just different things. You're like, okay, or if I'm in a bad conversation, I could bolt and say, hey, I'm going to get food, or I'm going to get a Coke, or I'm going to go to the restroom, or whatever. So I always identify those. And then if I do leave, I have to be careful that I'm not caught by somebody who's there to network, because then I'm stuck. So I always look for those. Another is to find familiar faces. Is there anybody in the room that you might have met, super well, or want to know? And so just look around for those people and spot where they're located. You don't have to do anything about it yet, but just spot where they're located. A lot of times it kind of gives me a roadmap of how I'm going to work the room. Maybe I want to end up with my connections, or maybe I want to start. And then just get that overall feel. When I spot who I want to talk to, and a lot of us will just find somebody who's familiar, they know that well, so they can start the reception by hitting getting a base hit. I go for the stranger. I always look for the person I don't know, who may not be totally engaged in the conversation, and I go straight up to that person. It's a risk. They could tell me to go pound salt, or they'll accept my my effort to seek them out because we will have never met. Either way, approach. Some tips I have and I want to share about the approach is even if you know the person or slightly know the person or it's a total stranger, kind of look them up top to bottom. I always will go immediately for their logo. I wouldn't stare at it. I wouldn't stare at the name badge to catch their name. I would just take a look, right? Because you want to get a sense of where they work. For like, if somebody walked up to me, they will see the Pathways to Aviation. They might see my name badge that says Pete Parker, right? Already you can make a play on the conversation with my name, but just give it a look. You don't want to walk up and say, hey, Pete, it's great to meet you, but just get a look. If you know the organization, you might have already thought of people you know in that organization, which might help get into that conversation. Approach that person, and you can even just walk in with your elevator pitch, or you just simply say hello. Or you say, hi, my name is Pete Parker. I'm with Pathways to Aviation. And that person might do the same thing. It's super easy. Because one of the other things that people fear is like, how do I approach? What do I say? What questions do I ask? And why am I in this conversation? What am I looking to get out of it? And so just enter in as if you're making a new friend, just simple, and then let the conversation develop. And you'll find the moment to share your elevator because that person will inevitably ask, well, Pete, what do you do? Right? And you can have a straight up professional answer, or you can be like me and I say, I make smiles, right? And then they're curious and like, well, how do you make smiles? And then I just go off. So my elevator a lot of times is 3 seconds. But then when they ask how I make smiles, it's like a 3-minute just dump. And I share how I do that, right? And they'll see the excitability in my face and that body language. And then they'll be like, oh my gosh, I want to talk to you more. And it always works. Or it could totally bomb and they'll just walk away and they'll say, that's a dumb answer. But approach how you would just naturally approach it. And then allow that person to share their moment, their elevator pitch, or describe what they do. And I find that the greatest, most important thing you can do while you're networking is listen. Listen intently. Let them talk. Don't respond to something they say. And they may say like, oh, I love the Dodgers. And instead of saying, gosh, so do I, let them talk about why they love the Dodgers, right? But don't just react, because if you react, you might be interrupting what they're trying to unload for you, which is more greatness, and you don't want to kill that vibe. And so you just let them share. And then when you think they're done, give it a moment pause, because they may just be taking a breath and want to share more. Just let them out, because networking is a two-way street. You're sharing about you, and there might be a purpose for why you're sharing it, right? That purpose might be, I need a job, or I want a job, I need a scholarship, and I know you guys have funds. It's to make as many connections as possible in the industry, somebody who can help open a door to allow me to meet somebody else, or it's just making a new friend. But a lot of times we think of networking as, how can I gain from that experience? When ultimately it's a two-way street, because there's greatness that you could share with them. It might be a person, it might be an idea, it might be a program to pursue. And so networking is not a me, it's a we thing. Just like I believe interviews are the same way, even though a lot of people believe it's a one-way street. Interviews are two-way streets. So you share, they share. Now, not every networking experience is like that. Some, you only have a minute, right? And you two can only share so much. Or you're in a group and they're walking, you're going around the group, sharing all that stuff. And either way, make sure that you're able to share what you want to share, and then you glean from them what you want to glean. And you can do that by asking simple questions, or you can ask deeper questions based on the conversation. But when you're listening, you might find cues. I already used the Dodgers experience, right? And so you might say, wow, isn't it great that we, brought on a Shohei Ohtani, right? Or can you believe they're playing in Korea? Wow, what an amazing experience. But you can pursue that path. If they say, I'm a pilot and you want to be a pilot, like there's no end to the questions you can ask. How did you get there? Do you know Greg Meising or Joe Rajacek? What did you do to exceed in your profession? Like, can you hook me up? Things like that. And so it all depends on the opportunity. Or they'll know somebody who's a pilot, and if they really like the conversation you're in, they'll say, oh my gosh, you need to meet Joe Rajacek, right? And then you'll ask, hey, can you connect me and all that. But that's all part of the conversation. There are other things that you can do in that conversation to make you look like gold. So you're going to have this moment, right? You're going to talk to them for either a minute or it could even be 15 minutes. I wouldn't go past 15 minutes. This is an event, right? So I think 5 minutes is the sweet spot. Be done after 5. And you can be done in a couple of ways. One, you could just say, I'm out of here. I gotta go. Not the best way. The other is you might have somebody who entered into your conversation. Somebody you know, somebody you don't know. But let's say it's somebody you do know. You turn and say, wow, great. It's great to see you. Joe, I'd like you to meet Greg Meising. And then you can share a little bit about Greg. If you don't know Greg all that well, you can approach it a different way. Like, oh, hey, how are you? Tell me your name. You can start the networking experience all over. But passing, if you know that person, passing, when those two people have their networking experience, and let's say that their relationship goes to a new level, right? One becomes a customer, one becomes a partner in business, one becomes a connection that opens new doors. They will never forget that you're the one who connected them. And that will not hit you. And Greg said this, right? He said, it could hit you in 10 years, in 18 years. Well, they'll say, you introduced me to Greg Meising. It's because of you that I'm here in my career. And so that's the huge ripple effect that networking can create for you. And so it may not be that immediate moment where you're getting something in return. It might be down the road and you are a superstar. So think in those terms as well. So you can pass. That's one way to do it. The other is tomorrow night we're at this woman in space event, and there are 14 exhibitors there. You can say, hey, I'm going to go over to the Pathways to Aviation table and I'm going to be Pete Parker. You want to come with me? Or you say, hey, I'm going to go over here. Let's wrap up towards the end of the event. You may not wrap up towards the end of the event, but at least you can say, I want to keep this conversation going. Before you part ways, if the conversation went well, ask, hey, I'd love to keep in contact with you. How can we do that? Now, if you're already in your career, you'll exchange business cards, right? If you're a student or a job seeker and you don't have a business card, that's okay. In advance of these networking events, bring a card. I always bring a bunch of cards to every Pathways Aviation event, and they're blank cards. They're like 2x3 cards that I just got at Staples or something. And I always bring those and let people write them. Doesn't matter how it looks, how bad or good, just write your name, your email, and your phone. You can even do that in the moment and exchange those cards. And then you can say, hey, I always believe in next steps with networking, right? So, hey, I'd love to grab a cup of coffee with you, or I'd love to introduce you to Greg or whatever. There's a next step. There's an identifiable next step. Or the next step could be, hey, I want to take you to the next Pathways to Aviation workshop or event. Let me get your information so I can make sure, and we'll go together. That sort of thing. But there's a next step. When the event's over, and this is how I'll conclude my little thing. When the event's over, within 24 hours, send an email to that person you met. And you may have met 15 people in this networking experience. Send emails to all 15. Just say, hey, great to see you last night. And if you remember a snippet from your conversation, it could be about the Dodgers, or it could be about piloting, or it could be about how beautiful Reno, Nevada is. Whatever it was in your conversation, add that in. Wasn't that event great last night, or something like that, but something that so they know that you remember that conversation. Now, the best way to track that information, I always take business cards, but I always take I just rip a sheet from my notepad, fold it a bunch, take a pen, and when I'm done talking to that person, I'm done talking to Joe, I might turn around and write it, Joe, or on the back of the business card that Joe gave me. Just a little snippet, right? Now, a lot of students will turn to their phone and write notes. Never do that, because it could give other people in that networking reception the impression that all you care about is your cell phone, social media, whatever it is you're doing with your cell phone. Don't. Write on a piece of paper. It's old school, but I guarantee you the response you'll get from people will be much, much better than if you're typing into your phone. It's less efficient, but a greater response. And so track that information. So when you send those emails out, send the snippet. Now, I would also go into LinkedIn and do the exact same thing, but maybe change the wording. I would find them on LinkedIn and click connect. Now, before you click anything else, make sure you click that thing that says add a note. Nobody ever does it. You add a note and then you can say, oh my gosh, it was great meeting tonight. Let's leverage LinkedIn so we can connect each other to other professionals. And you write a note and then add a little snippet, right? That goes a long way. What are you doing? You're extending the conversation. You're allowing them to respond to you by email, and you're letting them respond to you through LinkedIn, right? And then every so often you can go back to LinkedIn or by email and say, hey, how are you? You know, I was thinking about you this morning, and just send a little note. Now, the next day, this is what I do. Nobody really receives a card in the mail anymore. So why not write a thank you card? You can buy a stack of 10 at CVS or wherever you want to go, buy a stack and just write, hey, Greg, it was great meeting you. And a little snippet from the, that's it. That is it. About 90% of the time that I do this, I will get a text back with a photo of the card of what I wrote. And so that goes that goes a really long way. I send cards all the time to people I had just met for no other reason, even if there's no like legitimate next step, I will always send a card because you never know. And it always comes back in spades. People will always say, wow, you need to meet Pete Parker. He knows aviation. He knows how to connect people. He knows careers. And it always works. So I would do that. So that was in short form, what did I do? Like 9-10 minutes of the networking experience. And before I allow the two of you to chime in, it's important for everybody to know that on our website is our career planning workbook. On the back end of our website, if you click register as a new user, videos sharing all these tips are right there available and free for you to use. Now, sadly, I'm the talent, but the data is good. So bypass the looks and the voice and look at the data and listen to it. And it's legitimate data that we're sharing with our students and job seekers on a regular basis. So with that, Joe, Greg, anything that you want to add on that networking experience that I just shared?
Yeah, Pete. I was thinking of when we had our last Top Gun event, and I was watching the people walk around the tables, and the younger, let's say, high school, college age, or young people in general, you could see that some of them were kind of shy, maybe even afraid to go up and talk to people. So I would take them by the hand and introduce myself, and then I'd walk up to a table and I'd say, what are you interested in? And we'd go over talk to the FAA, or we'd go over and talk to Pathways or whatever it is. But I just want to let people know that those people working those tables or career fairs or that you meet at the airport, hardly any of them are professional speakers. So they're not so professional that you have to worry about saying every word right or getting the conversation going. You just look like you're friendly, and most people are going to start talking to you. The other thing is, I happen to know that two people coming to our event are going to be the first time they've ever been at an event, and they're manning a table. So they're going to be just as afraid and shy to talk to people as you are to go up to them. So think about that. It's life. It's fun. It's kind of, let's see what we can do with this conversation. Make it fun.
It's so funny that you mentioned that. I just watched the video of these tips before for the show, and I even mentioned, like, if you think you're intimidated, half the people in the room are just as intimidated to meet new people. So it's okay, and it's also okay to be genuine, right? It's okay to stumble over your words or not know what to say because it's fun. But I will be that guy, and maybe I'm weird, but if I see a student standing there and not know what to do, how to work the room, or just like look lost, I will go up to that person and say, and ask him about that. What is your interest? What are you hoping to accomplish? And I am going to walk you to somebody who's going to brighten your day. And I know Joe and Greg, you guys do the same thing. And there's nothing better than seeing the smile on that person's face when you make that introduction. It changes everything because all it takes is one spark.
Yep.
And you can change somebody's trajectory. And and one of them just sent me an email of him flying, and he did his thing because we introduced him to the university and to other people to make that happen. So, any comments or questions from anybody?
Pete, I was just going to jump in real quick. A couple of things that you said kind of spark some ideas. I'm gonna misquote this horribly. It's a Maya Angelou quote. That is, people don't remember what you said or what you did, but they do remember how you made them feel. And recently, I found myself on the receiving end. Right, I love to mentor younger students or something like that. And I used to be the guy who wanted to find out information, right? I was the mentee. I was trying to go to see people. Well, at last year's event, how people made me feel, right? So you might be thinking, hey, I'm a younger student, and what do I have to offer, right? Like, I'm just going to ask questions and sit there, right? Well, I vividly remember the 2 to 3 people that made me feel listened to, right? Lots of people asked me questions, but there was 2 or 3 people that I could tell were truly listening. And that feeling I got from they're truly listening to me. And oh, by the way, we ended up networking later on. We did a couple events together down the road. Gosh, I remembered their faces and how they made me feel, because I'm like, I can tell in this person's eyes are truly listening to me. So even if you aren't the one speaking, your body language, the way that you listen to other people is going to make them feel a certain way and is going to make you memorable. So maybe you don't have a skill set yet because you're in middle school or high school and you haven't, broken out into the field you want to break into, but just your listening skills can set you apart and make somebody feel heard. And that's going to go a long way. Pete, I 100% agree with you where the phone can be a dangerous, dangerous thing. What I did find was helpful was, especially on an iPhone, you can make a contact card. So if you don't have paper or anything like that, instead of having to type in the number and then type in the name, and oh, by the way, we're all horrible with names, and then it's embarrassing because you don't want to ask their name, so you save them as something weird in your phone and then never reach back out again. I've made a contact card that I can literally just hit 2 buttons and it sends. And in that contact card, I've made notes. Hey, Pathways to Aviation, F-18, American Airlines. And so then our phones are out for a minimal amount of time, if at all. And another thing, excuse me, that Pete mentioned, you don't want to go on too long, but quality over quantity, right? You can bounce around and meet 150 people, but you're probably going to get more out of meeting 25 people and spending some quality eye contact and time with them to get the information. Not to draw it out over the whole course of an hour and a half, but just keep that in mind as well. If you are going to start meeting someone and networking, make sure that there's some quality time spent, and don't feel that you need to meet all 500 people in the room, because you're going to end up really not gaining as much. But anyway, just a couple thoughts I had while you were speaking, Pete.
No, that's awesome. And the phone moment, it's intentional, right? And so you're in that moment where you're having a conversation, but it's like when you walk away and type in your phone, it's just a bad optic. And so, and I'm old school, forgive me. I mean, I still use a notepad for everything. Like, I love to write. That's just how I think. Whereas my son, I think he has a chip in his brain and he just presses it and shares the information with somebody. I don't know how they do it. But one thing I didn't touch on in my little tirade about networking, and you touched on it, was body language. And it speaks volumes. Like 80% of your conversation, from their perspective, their perception, is your body language. It's not even the words you say. They might just gloss out, not listen to you, but they can see your body language. And if you're like slumped or whatever your body language might be, they'll check that characteristic. And it's a character flaw if it's on the negative side. So when you're passed, if you're passed, or when people talk about you the next day to other people, you want it to be a positive reflection and not something like, oh my gosh, Pete, oof, I don't know what was wrong with that. He was off. You want it to be positive. And I'm accused all the time of being a little bit too energetic. I will take that any day. And so, but body language is vital in that experience. Anything else?
That was a good wrap up, Pete.
Cool. So here's how we can wrap this thing up. Is I don't know what this is. Is this the third Wednesday? On the third Wednesday of every month, we're going to host this. We're going to continue. I haven't posted it all on the website yet, but the third Wednesday, I'll probably post it tomorrow for the next quarter. We're going to have this conversation, and we bring in students, job seekers, friends, and they can come in, and there will, we're going to have an industry leader. But we want to hear more from our visitors so that they can ask questions and feel comfortable and say, hey, tell me about this networking thing. What we didn't do today, which we will be doing moving forward, because we wanted to focus these last 2 workshops on this Women in Space event, is I will send a video out before each workshop and say, this is going to be the focus. So next month, it's going to be more on skills identification and resume writing, like part 1 for resume writing, so that students and job seekers, et cetera, can come on and ask questions. We can have a conversation, open conversation about the skills. How do I identify my skills, or what are they, or how can I build upon these skills, or like, what do I put in my resume? And we can start to have those conversations. And then the next workshop after that will be a deep dive into the resume writing experience and really developing your job experience descriptions. And then we will navigate that whole thread in months to come, much as we do along the same lines as our 3-step process to becoming career ready, so that there's a purpose and there's a flow. So we'll start with the writing, into the verbal, and then, kind of you're done from there. So that's all I have. If you're in Reno, we strongly encourage you to come tomorrow night to the Women in Space event. We're unfortunately not live streaming it, which we are hoping to do, but we'll post what we can. I'm taking the video camera effort, and I'm going to get a couple of snippets. But come back with us next month in the third Wednesday of April. We're going to talk more about that whole career readiness flow. So with that, I just want to thank everybody for being on today. This is amazing. Joe, Greg, you did a great job. But to the two of you, thank you so much for supporting Pathways Aviation over these years. And we're truly making an impact in the industry, not just today, but moving forward, because we truly are affecting that next generation of aviation aerospace. So with that, I will conclude and just want to say thank you and hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening.